Hello everyone, it is me again, Penguin21, and today, we're going to be covering Harman Smith today, again. Now, Harman Smith is one of those people that you always think that you're done with him, and then he just goes and makes a video like this. But I already covered him talking about Yuzu before, but I wanted to quickly address that because I wanted to make another video on this, and I still might. But, of course, the quick update is that Yuzu decided to just give Nintendo... they settled out of court, and Yuzu is now officially no more. Someone eventually did tell me, oh, that video aged poorly because they lost. They didn't. They settled. There's a difference between settling and losing a court case. Plus, again, to anyone who says that means that they have an admission of guilt, no, it doesn't. It just means that they didn't want to fight the Nintendo. And everyone's like, oh, well, you said that they had a case. It's like, yes, they do have a case. They could have won, but the risk that they outran was the fact that this is Nintendo that we're talking about here, who will literally basically ruin the rest of their lives just because of they think that they wronged them. If you don't believe me, there was one dude that they actually sued, and he now, not only did he do jail time, but he now owes them a lot of money for the rest of his life. So there's that. Anyway, we're not talking about any of that today because, quite frankly, I think that really just gives the whole update thing away. In any case, let's just talk about Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom and apparently how it is, quote-unquote, more popular than the Elden Ring DLC.
The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom is a year old, and it's being talked about more than the upcoming Elden Ring DLC. The Elden Ring DLC actually got overshadowed by Tifa's titties in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, right? Tifa's titties got more views on YouTube than the Elden Ring DLC did. And don't try and deny it. Don't try and say, well, actually, the Elden Ring trailer was reacted to several times by YouTubers that nobody cares, but nobody cares about that. Nobody cares about the views in general. I'm not sitting here saying that Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is bigger than Elden Ring.
Well, okay, number one, you just completely and utterly basically just contradicted yourself, saying that no one cares about the views, but you said that Tifa's Bazongas got more views than Elden. What the fuck was that point? That point makes no sense, because on the one hand, you're wrong, because the Elden Ring DLC has over 1.2 million views at the time of me saying this sentence, as far as I am aware, with things about the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth not really being talked about. And the only reason why I think that they're being talked about is because of the whole, Sweet Baby Inc. kind of controversy, where they're bringing in some of the other people that have been, wokeified, and I don't want to get into that. Don't bring that into my comments. But at the same time, it's one of those things where I already talked about this. If you want to go and check out the video, it's somewhere on my channel. But no, you're wrong, but we're going to continue.
Or something. My point is that, views on YouTube don't matter at all, right? Tifa's titties overshadowed the Elden Ring DLC trailer because Tifa's titties are actually nice to look at. They actually look like they belong. They could be in real life, right? It looks like you can almost reach out and touch them on the screen. If you just go out and buy some 3D glasses from Sony, you're going to be able to see those puppies just jiggling in your face, right? Again, that is a cope,
Okay, so hold on. So this whole part here about the Tifa's bust and stuff like that, just to me, it what are you on about? I thought you were the Nintendo guy. I thought that, this is the Nintendo guy, right? This is the dude who says that Nintendo is awesome. Where are you going with this point here? You have mentioned, oh yeah, the Tears of the Kingdom overshadowed the Elden Ring DLC, and yet you went off on a completely different topic in order to talk about titties? I'm starting to understand where Sweet Baby Inc. tends to get their sample size of gamers being the way that they say that they are. They must have watched like all of Harman's videos, and then that was their conclusion. That's a joke. Being very clear about that.
Like, that's never actually going to happen. But at the same time, there's a reason that Final Fantasy VII Rebirth was so popular when it was first shown off. They jiggled those puppies in your face, right? And it's with Elden Ring, it's like the same kind of thing, right? Where like people say like, oh, it's Elden Ring, From Slop, they put out the best games ever made. I don't even play anything else, but I just know From Slop makes the best. And like you look at the trailer and you're just kind of like, oh, it's more of the same. Okay. I guess I'm still excited. I guess. I bet Harman Smith is seething. I bet Harman Smith is upset about the Elden Ring trailer. Meanwhile, I'm like sitting here talking about like Tifa's titties, right? Like I'm sitting here talking about Unicorn Overlord and Princess Peach Showtime. Like I did not give a shit about the Elden Ring DLC.
If you don't care, if you don't give a shit, you wouldn't make the goddamn video. I feel like I've said this so many times to people who are like, oh, well, I don't really care about X topic. It's like, if you didn't care, you wouldn't make the video. Plus, also, the people that would think like, oh, yeah, Harman's going to have a reaction to this are the only, like, one, the haters that would know you. Two, would be the ones that probably would be making content on you. And three, you're not even the first person that I even thought of that would be, like, shitting on the Elden Ring DLC. Like, I covered another dude, like, Saturday on the Elden Ring DLC before as well. So, like, you're not even the first person that I thought of that made this sort of video. Plus, also, I think Tarragon has a couple things to say about this. But, yeah, no, absolutely. Just think of yourself so highly. But, again, the views don't matter. Views don't matter.
And the reason for that being is that it wasn't relevant, right? This is the interesting thing about Elden Ring, is that I do think the majority of the audience only bought it out of hype. They only bought it because it was the new big thing. It was like being backed by George R.R. Martin. It had a major ad campaign behind it. Like, there was this major like shill campaign behind the Elden Ring, right? People were legit stoked for it. And then it came out, it was disappointing. Millions of people walked away thinking that like, wow, that was it? It wasn't my kind of game.
Considering that I used to actually despise the original Dark Souls games because I found them very hard, and then, I played Elden Ring and was like, finally became Elden Lord after 160 plus hours of the game. Like, no. I mean, some people might have walked away from it, absolutely, by saying the game was bad. And there are people that have that. And if you played the game, you said, oh, this is not for me, it's just really bad, and I don't like a lot of the decisions that they made, I can respect that. Because, again, number one, the game is very difficult, and it doesn't care whether or not you want to do it. You just have to do it in the way that they want you to they want you to learn. Like, that's how the game works. And two, like, it's just not for everyone. Like, again, it's a game that's very... I don't want to say it's very Japanese. It's like all sorts of inspiration from all sorts of things. It's very... I don't know of a good positive word to say it, other than it's just very flavor of itself, if that makes sense. It sounds very self-congratulatory, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean it in like, it knows what it is, and it has a very clear vision as to what it wants to do and what it wants to accomplish. If that, I think that comes off right. Like that, right? Anyway, not important. Anyway.
But whatever. And a lot of those people never even beat it. And like I ask you, like, how many people who did not beat Elden Ring are going to go out and play the DLC? No one, right? The DLC for Elden Ring, from Slop games have traditionally been very well received, but they don't.
That's not necessarily true, because you don't know whether or not that actually is the case. Some people might have seen the DLC and have been like, oh shit, maybe I should try this Elden Ring game. You don't know that. You don't know if this thing brings in new people. Plus, at the same time, there's also the notion that you think that it's marketed to people who don't already own the game, which is true. It can be marketed to people who don't already own the game, but it's more marketed as an expansion, obviously, to the people who already own the game. And considering that that audience is around, like, what, 24 million last time I checked? I don't remember specifically. But it has a big, wide audience, especially on places like Steam and stuff, that's going to get people reinvigorated in it. That's why it became Elden lore. That's why I wanted to complete the game. Which you're probably seeing some of my New Game Plus gameplay in the background of me just stomping through stuff at this point because it's just going to be funny. But finally, after like 160 hours, I was able to beat Radagon and the Elden Beast, and by God, I am so happy that I'm going to be doing a New Game Plus run of this game. And I might even start a new game, like a different new game, and then start to like level up that character because while yeah, it's fun to go and romp around the New Game Plus area, it just kind of feels like I didn't get the most out of like a new game, like a fresh actual game out of it. So I'm going to see if I can make a better build to start with and then move on from there. Because I think that would be really, really fun. At least personally. Anyway.
Don't necessarily they don't necessarily like bring in a new player base, right? Because they're like essentially made for people who the kind of person who like does everything else in the base game, which is a very small niche portion of the gaming population, right? Like nobody is going to go through all of
That's not necessarily true again. Again, I did it because I personally wanted to just beat the game before the DLC came out. But you're saying a lot of things that I don't think you understand literally anything of what you're talking about. That like, oh, this is not meant for this game. Like, how do you know? Like, how can you be so sure that it's not people who have done everything in the base game or on like New Game Plus 6 or 7 or whatever? Like, what? How are you functioning?
the Elden Ring DLC if they haven't actually beaten the game. Like why would they do that? That doesn't make any sense. It's a complete waste of money. It's a complete waste of time. There's nothing really. There's no reason to like buy the expansion if you never even finished the base game. And I think it's safe to say that the majority member of the something like 90% of the gaming audience who bought into the Elden Ring hype, probably more like 95 if we're being generous. Like 95% of the gaming population, like
You know, you really should learn some editing and cut around your edits of you taking a drink of water and taking a long fucking pause because it gets annoying whenever I have to react to you and you sigh and you're like trying to collect your thoughts. It's super weird. But to get to his actual point here, if you've done everything in the base game, yeah, more DLC is going to be good and that's more content for you. But as well as it could just be that that person wants to get more content. Again, you're saying that this is like it's not for anyone who hasn't beat the main game yet. So the people that would want to beat the main game would then get the DLC, or the people that or would then get the DLC to not complete the main game, because some people just stay at the final boss and they don't complete the main story quest or anything like that at all, and they'll just go around and overpower themselves to a near ridiculous degree. But like how I don't get what you're talking about. Like, your point is so nonsensical.
they never finished the game. You know, they never finished, they never beat the first boss. They never figured out what they were supposed to do. They never got into the game. And as a result of that, they're not going to be interested in the DLC. And what has that led to, right? People got bored of Elden Ring and they went over to Zelda. And people realized that, like, wow, Zelda is a lot more fun, right? You can do a lot more stuff. Like, there's this cool building. There are these like cool areas to explore. Like, it has a better plot. You know, more interesting characters, mechanics. Whoa, I can fly around in circles around a mountain and like fight a giant dragon. You know, like Tears of the Kingdom is infinitely better than Elden Ring. And the only reason you would ever think otherwise is if you hadn't played Tears of the Kingdom, right? That's kind of
I have never played Tears of the Kingdom, so I can't speak specifically onto the fact that apparently he thinks that Tears of the Kingdom is more feature complete and more depth, has more depth, I guess, than Elden Ring, which you can basically switch up your entire build once you get to a specific point in the game, and that's, you can completely and utterly break the game in various interesting ways. I mean, yeah, certainly, but Tears of the Kingdom does have its building mechanic, but that's more of a gimmick, but, like, a good one, so, like, it's a positive gimmick, I guess. So, but yeah, again, to just go off of my own personal experience, I spent 160 hours to just beat the main game. And I did my playthrough, like, fucking slow. So, to have a game like that take 160 hours to beat, just the main plot, and, like, that's just me, like, leveling up, getting better. You can speedrun it, absolutely. You can speedrun that to get, like, 20 to 30 hours out of it to speedrun it to the end. Or some people even beat it in, I think, 2 hours or something. I don't know. But people beat that game quick. So, like, what? The people who didn't beat the main boss, who actually hated the game, who are not going to buy, who refunded the game, who are not going to like the game in the first place, those people don't like Elden Ring, and therefore the DLC is bad, because those people that don't like Elden Ring because they couldn't get into it, and in some cases haven't even played the actual game, will not get the DLC, therefore making the DLC bad. But Legend of Zelda is good. I think I just gave myself a brain aneurysm with that.
That was kind of the gist of it, right? But over the past year, as people like slowly started accepting that Tears of the Kingdom was a great game, like people are slowly beginning to talk about like how great it was. Its amazing moments, the Master Sword pull, the dive at the end, like this and that, and just like all these phenomenal things that just made Tears of the Kingdom what it is, right? Like there's so much about Tears of the Kingdom though, which I would argue makes it like one of the best games ever made, right? Just like Breath of the Wild before it. But right now we're in this like weird phase of like denial from like the Pretendos and like the FromSoft fanboys, is that they don't want to admit it's true, right? They don't want to admit that like Dark Souls isn't appealing to everyone, and that it's kind of a niche thing. They kind of do this thing where like they assume if that you're not into Dark Souls, that you just haven't been initiated yet, that you've just been like filtered, that you just don't know how to play the game or whatever. No, like I've played through Dark Souls. I don't enjoy it, right? Like that's the reality. Like that kind of thing is like sacrilegious to them. Like admitting that you've beaten Dark Souls and then just going like, yeah, I didn't enjoy it. Like that is like the craziest thing they can possibly hear, right?
I mean, again, I've never personally heard of anything of that nature happening, and quite honestly, I don't even think that you've beaten or even set foot in Dark Souls personally. I honestly don't believe that. But that's just my own personal opinion. So, there's like 3 minutes left of this video, and he's basically just repeating his points at this point, and I think that that'll about be the point where I cut it off, because quite honestly, like, to go to his main points, again, the thing with the DLC is that apparently it's not mass appealing to people who don't like Dark Souls, and people who don't own Dark Souls or don't like Dark Souls will not buy. I meant Elden Ring, but in the same vein, like, people who don't like Elden Ring or the Dark Souls series will not be bought into by the DLC for the Dark Souls or in this case, Elden Ring series. Which, as a marketing student, I can tell you, yes, but you're dumb for thinking that that's bad, because they're marketing it to their audience of the people that they already have. So, well done job there. Overall, in this context, I think that'll really about do it. And quite honestly, I just don't want to talk about Harman stuff anymore. It was a lot to even get to making this video and stuff. But if you like what it is that I do, want to support me in any way, shape, or form, looking to hit 1K by the end of the year, please like, comment, and subscribe. That helps me a lot. Links down to everything in the description below because I love you so much. Music in the description, as well as I stream on the weekends. Be sure to be on the Twitch when that happens, and I love every single one. My name is GamePenguin21. Thank you so much for watching again, and a peace off.